station with the most local news. This is News 4 at 6:30.
We begin at 6:30 with breaking news about an ongoing incident on the Thruway. State police say a person is in custody following a standoff that forced part of the Thruway to shut down for several hours.
And all lanes are now reopened. The standoff began earlier this afternoon and involved what police described as a distraught person. News 4's Callan Gray joins us live from the Thruway with the very latest on this developing story. Callan?
Dave, Christy, as you can see, the Thruway has reopened after it was closed for hours, as you mentioned, as state police dealt with someone they called a distraught person. Now, I just got off the phone with a state police spokesperson for the Thruway who tells me they got the call to be on the lookout for a potentially suicidal man. They were looking for that person in the area of Stafford, and state police saw this person's vehicle on the Thruway. That's when they tried to pull this individual over to see if they needed medical attention. Now, there was a large police response. We're told that's because there was a very brief pursuit, but once they were able to get this man to the side of the road, they had to call in negotiators because he was in such a state. They were able to negotiate and get him into custody, so they were able to transfer him to an area hospital. But the Thruway was closed down for hours today between the Leroy and Pembroke exits as state police dealt with this situation. We are told that no one was injured throughout this whole ordeal. No state police, no law enforcement, and the individual who started this all, we're told, a man in his mid-50s. He is also all right. Again, he has been transferred to a local hospital where he can get some help. State police telling me they are very thankful that this didn't take a different turn. Once again, the Thruway is open right now. We are at the Route 237 overpass. Traffic did begin flowing shortly after 6 o'clock today when they got that suspect in custody. Reporting live, Callan Gray, News 4.
All right, Callan, thanks very much. And as we learn new details about this breaking story, we'll bring them to you here and online at WIVB.com. Of course, Callan will be following this story this evening, so look for her full report coming up on News 4 at 10 and 11.
Also breaking tonight, Buffalo police say the 198 westbound has reopened with lane restrictions at Grant Street after a cement truck hits the Grant Street Bridge, forcing emergency road work. Police say Grant Street Bridge is still closed. That means drivers must exit at Grant Street as crews continue to make repairs. We're told the cement truck actually sheared off pins that were attached to support plates for the bridge, making it an emergency situation. Officials say no one was hurt when the truck hit the bridge, but the driver of the truck will be cited. Switching gears now to your forewarned forecast. We saw a lot of sunshine today in Western New York. That was a nice change.
It was a welcome change, very true. That sun and those higher temperatures going to stick around for at least a little bit of a part of this work week. Meteorologist Kaylee Wayne joins us with all the details in your forecast first at 6:30. Kaylee?
Good evening. It's definitely been a pretty nice day today, and it's beautiful outside at this point. We had a number of viewers send in our sunset photos from all around Western New York. This view is over the Lake Erie camera. You can see those reds and pinks in the background, but also some of the ice on Lake Erie, excuse me, and we're going to get to that in a moment, but I wanted to show you this as well. This was out on the lake earlier and, of course, trying to fix up that ice boom, and it's because it broke over the weekend, because at least a portion of it broke because of strong winds and something called seiche that we see in Lake Erie. It's quite often when the winds really start to pick up. Now, it's pretty miraculous because when you think about how much ice is on the lake, just about 50%, that water movement is not as common. So something that's just pretty interesting that happened over the weekend and earlier on in the day today. Again, Lake Erie still seeing about 50% ice coverage. Here's a view of winds at this point. This is when one of the biggest changes today. Earlier on, it was a bit breezy. For now, those winds have really backed off to about 5 to 15 miles per hour, and they'll continue to do so as we move through the evening tonight. So coming up in my full forecast, we're not going to really focus in on the winds. We're going to focus in on high pressure system that's over Western New York. We'll let you know what you can expect for the next few days, plus when some more rain moves into the area.
Students and teachers are preparing to re-enter Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Wednesday. It's been almost 2 weeks since a former student shot and killed 17 people at the school in Florida. An investigation into how officers responded to the shooting is now underway. We've seen an increase in the number of threats made to schools in our area since the shooting happened in Florida.
Just this morning, Newfane Central School District was in a lockout after authorities were alerted to a possible threat. The student that allegedly made that threat was taken into custody by the Niagara County Sheriff's Office. Meanwhile, New York State Police are investigating a number of recent threats. They're increasing patrols now to keep students and staff safe. Troopers say these threats are uncommon, but they are seeing more than usual lately.
What makes it more so now is I think a lot of the staff and a lot of students are more aware of how dangerous and how significant this could turn into. So what happens is more calls are coming in that typically people would blow off.
State police say even if a threat wasn't made at a school, there still could be a police presence there.
Dozens of demonstrations were held after the shooting in Florida as students protested against gun violence, calling for stricter gun laws. School leaders in Buffalo are speaking out at a time when public school students are predicting even more activism next month.
Education leaders with 4 Buffalo schools all signed a letter asking President Donald Trump to limit unrestricted access to semi-automatic firearms. News 4's Marissa Perlman has more on those efforts, plus what schools plan to do if students opt to walk out here at home.
It really is a life and death matter in some cases, and so it's great to see them stand up and get involved and see what it takes to try to affect change in this country.
Ginger Jeffrey with Canisius High School tells us about the letter that appeared in the New York Times on Sunday. It says schools are coming together and rising up to say enough in the wake of the Parkland shootings.
Our president felt that it was important to speak out on this issue. We've seen the students in Florida speak out, and it's great to see young people stand up for something that they believe in. And
more than 150 independent schools signed this. The move comes at a time when student voices are loud.
Keep us safe! Keep us safe!
And that's only expected to grow as rallies, walkouts, and marches are scheduled nationwide over the next month. Canisius is supportive, encouraging students here to do what they think is right for their own security.
We definitely encourage our students to stand up for something that they believe in, so I'm sure we'll be taking part in it in some way, shape, or form.
Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown is on board too, in fact offering up buses to take young people to D.C. next month.
I will be joining students from across our nation in the March for Our Lives, and I will sponsor buses so that young people from Buffalo have the opportunity to march.
In a letter to parents, Superintendent of the Amherst School District, Anthony Piniella, said he is aware of the planned walkouts, but didn't respond to our request for comment. His statement said, in part, I anticipate that there will be interest from some of our secondary students in aligning locally around the movement. I will be meeting with various stakeholders to determine the best way for ACSD students and staff to express themselves in ways that are respectful and do not infringe on the rights of others. Reporting in Buffalo, Marissa Perlman, News 4.
A Marilla teen has admitted to his role in the death of a toddler. Devon Vanderwedge was charged with murder, but pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter today. Authorities say Vanderwedge played a role in the death of 2-year-old Ethan Bigham, who he was babysitting. The toddler died because of blunt force trauma last March. The Erie County District Attorney says taking Vanderwedge to trial for the murder charge would have been harder to prove because there was another person at the home when the crime happened.
He's waived his right to appeal. He can appeal. I've got a certain verdict, and I'm going to get a certain amount of punishment from the judge that cannot be appealed. So at the end of the day, I think justice has been done here.
Vanderwedge faces up to 20 years in prison when he's sentenced April 9th.
Local lawmakers are pushing for big changes at the Crossing Plaza on the U.S. side of the Peace Bridge.
Congressman Brian Higgins and Chris Collins want to make millions of dollars in improvements and expand the area. Congressman Higgins made the announcement today. He wants to expand the current 17-acre plaza to 25 acres, which would stretch into Bust-Eye Avenue. He also wants to add new state-of-the-art technology like facial recognition. He says it would cut down on wait times.
Through the technology, that information will be transmitted to Customs and Border agents immediately. So it will improve public safety, but it will also improve the functioning of this and the appearance.
People living near the plaza are concerned with having more big development in such a residential area. But Higgins says he does not support selling Bust-Eye Avenue to the state. Right now, the Peace Bridge Authority has $50 million in its budget for funding. Higgins expects the project would cost between $75 to $100 million. Still to come, we sit down with the new president of the Amherst Chamber of Commerce, A.J. Baines. We get his take on new developments in the town and what people who live there can expect with new town leadership.